Is China sliding downhill at an alarming pace, with production dropping down significantly for the third consecutive month? Will the factory of the world be able to get its manufacturing act together and steady itself on the slippery financial slope it seems to be teetering on? Or is China going to drop the ball? Join us as we take stock of the wonky economic woes China is battling with for its economy survival. Is Chinese manufacturing on the precipice of disaster? Experts in financial circles have dropped their glass-half-full approach in the face of recent negative figures. What at one point was blatant optimism has now been firmly pushed out, with cynicism and doubt taking its place. Data emanating from the National Bureau of Statistics presents a less than stellar picture. The official Managers Purchasing Index, or PMI, stayed put, remaining lower than the 50-point mark. This is the make or break point on a 100-point scale that establishes which side of the fence things actually lie on. Either they're headed for calmer waters, with expansion written all over the cards, or curving downstairs, dwindling towards a contraction. For China, the latter seems to be the case. The PMI swung from 48.8 to 49.0 in May. The conclusion matched the forecast and stood at 49.0. However, it did not jump over the 50-point mark. The month of May 2023 also showcased its share of missed economic targets and forecasts for China, putting further weight on the country's increasingly wobbly economic situation. Seems like the post-pandemic era brought something of a pandemonium to China's economic climate. The dire circumstances evident in the series of emerging data related to retail sales and industrial output that has fallen short of its expected mark. Financial experts have been pushed to quell their enthusiasm and to take their economic forecast down by several notches. Any financial bandage that the post-COVID era had applied to China's recovering economy seems to be bursting apart at the seams. An economic reality check is on the cards. Time for a definite reality check. China's factory activity is falling down. We are getting London Bridge vibes here, much like the fabled structure of our childhood poems, a throwback to the ditty London Bridge is falling down. Remember that one? So has China read the energy in the room and set their sights on achievable aims? Looks like China is planning on bringing the economic bar down. It has lost some of its former swag, with paring back on the annual target of its GDP growth, setting it at a reasonable and relatively basic 5%, given how badly it tanked it at nailing its 2022 target. The tone of the Chinese leadership has also lost some of its somewhat gung-ho approach of making belligerent and sweeping statements regarding China's economic prospects. You just know things are failing and floundering when the Chinese government adopts the stance of a wise and mature middle-aged parent, trying to act sensible and all. The Chinese cabinet opted for a cautious and measured approach in the very recent past, in putting out a potent message that it will salvage the disastrous situation through sustained efforts in a timely manner. China's manufacturing industry is groaning and creaking under the massive weight of weak demand eating out its consumer and private sector. Policymakers of the People's Republic plan to take steps and implement measures that will turn the tide of the Chinese economy's favor and increase this demand in order to combat debt and capital flight, as per a report in Japan News. Nomura scathing analysis. Nomura has driven a nail in the coffin, albeit not a final one, but one that nevertheless paints a pretty drab picture, even if new prospects do inject some growth into the Chinese economy. In what seems like some serious scissor action, Nomura has slashed its forecast for China's GDP growth, trimming it down significantly from 5.5% to 5.1%. What's China's plan of action to bring all these goals that those at the helm of affairs have spelled out? Let's fast forward to the World Economic Forum summit held in Tianjin recently. While China has doled out solutions left, right, and center, the Chinese Prime Minister Li Qiang reiterated as much, declaring that his government will do the needful to pump up demand. What solid steps will be taken in this regard remains a matter of mystery. Times are tough, and China finds itself in an increasingly sticky situation of manufacturing activity falling and contracting, with the third consecutive month rolling around. Third time is definitely not the charm in this case. Things will slide further if it doesn't get cracking soon to remedy the situation. For a while, things were on the up and up for the economic giant following the lifting of curbs due to COVID in December 2022. Travel and tourism, as well as businesses, started to pick up. Temporary relief. However, relief was only temporary, with a number of homegrown and global factors coming into play, knocking off the nation from the path of pumping up production and economic growth. For one, consumer spending had dwindled significantly on China's home turf. Foreign shores posed another challenge, with interest rates spiking up in the USA and Europe, casting a negative impact on demand for exports. The figures don't look too promising. Let's go back to the National Bureau of Statistics along with China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing. It's time to review things with a magnifying glass and read the fine print. Some bad juju seems to be following China. As compared to the previous month, a measure of China's export orders suffered a drop by 0.8 points to 46.4. A measure of employment also trailed behind, taking a downward turn. May 2023 was not a good month for the Chinese economy. China encountered some pretty bad news and took a number of hits, especially when it comes to areas such as acceleration in factory or consumer activity. Both decelerated in May when set in comparison with figures obtained from previous data. Things did not fare any better on the export front either, with exports showcasing a shrinkage factor of 7.5% as opposed to last year. Meanwhile, rampant unemployment also wreaked havoc on the crumbling economic infrastructure, breaking barriers and reaching an all-time high of 20.8%. Chinese and foreign companies are running for the hills. Is this the beginning of the end? China's reputation as the world's factory might be rapidly going through a shift. It's not morphing from the caterpillar stage to the butterfly. In fact, quite the opposite is taking place. Chinese manufacturers are taking a leaf from their Western counterparts' books and are looking to greener pastures to shift their supply chains. Against the backdrop of mounting cost and escalating Sino-US tensions, countries such as India, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia seem poised to plug the gap. India is fertile ground for Chinese manufacturers, with companies such as makers of smartphones, Vivo and Oppo, as well as SAIC, makers of cars operating on Indian soil. The exotic island of Thailand is a lucrative magnet for manufacturers, with its solid reputation as a production hub when it comes to the automobile industry and electronic goods. It's little surprise to anyone that the second largest economy in Southeast Asia has managed to pull in companies such as Sony and Sharp. Chinese car manufacturers are also eyeing Thailand as a potential operating ground. Shanghai-based Jinko Solar is also pushing for production to be relocated to Thailand. Vietnam's another hotspot that is attracting the interest of Chinese solar panel manufacturers as a good breeding ground for investment. So far, Chinese companies that have set up shop in Vietnam include a power storage firm based in Shenzhen known as Growatt, and a manufacturer of solar panel components, Hangzhou First Applied Material. In a move to gain proximity to their customers in the US and Europe, the Chinese are also scoping out countries such as Mexico and Poland. Let's gaze at the crystal ball. What does the future hold for the Chinese? Zheng Jihui, a president and chief economist of the Pinpoint Asset Management, is giving some not-so-good tidings of tougher times to follow if his recent statements are anything to go by. According to Jihui, economic momentum is creeping along in China. Add to that the recent slowdown in the global economy, which will further restrict external demand. All in all, China seems to be stuck in a bit of an economic pressure cooker for some time to come. Financial watchers have sussed out July as a key month, which will define the path for China's next tentative steps after the Communist Party gauges the performance of the Chinese economy for the first half of 2023. A number of key Wall Street banks, including Goldman Sachs and Bank of America, have also downgraded their growth projections for China. How do you propose China's economic situation will play out? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And if you like our content, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. And we'll catch you guys later.